What's good with YouTube? It's your man Cosplay Ray, and we're back with another episode of We Are Epic Cosplay. Today, on this video, we're doing the knee rocket from the Mandalorian. Now, it was a pretty decent build. I mean, it was decently easy, I guess you could say. I used about I think a 6mm piece of foam. Got my template. Got to make sure you got a sharp knife, though. Remember, you want your cuts to come out nice and clean. You got to make sure you got a nice sharp knife. Okay, cut out my piece. Then I found, I don't even remember where I found this. I might have found it at like a dollar store or something. It had like a solar light in there, and I just took it apart, and now I'm using it to like heat and shape my foam. So, I mean, it comes in really handy. So all you want to do is put a good amount of heat to your knee pad and get a little bit of curvature in there. Bend those side pieces back. Make sure that, kind of wraps around your knee pretty well. And here I'm taking this piece and I'm just going to zap a gap this like a reinforcement into the back of this 6mm, just to give it a little bit more stability. But I even later on, I actually went back and made a groove and took a coat hanger and put a wire in the back of the knee pad and glued that into place. And now I know for a fact it's not going to go anywhere. So here I am, just finishing up that little reinforcement, whatever's left on the side. Just take your scissors and just snip it off. Just like that. And so as you can see, now we got the nice shape, Mandalorian knee rocket shape. And I decided to take an extra piece of, I think, 4mm and cut a little piece and glue that behind the main portion of the knee, just to give it a, I just wanted it a little thicker. I probably could have used a 10mm foam for this, but I ended up going with the 6mm. So now that shape's going to definitely stay there. And now I'm taking my existing template and I'm actually making new templates for the pieces that go on the side or the ends, like caps, call them caps, for the side of the knee rocket. See, I'm doing a little test fit. Got the other side all mocked up. Looks good to me. So I think I might have actually used the 10mm foam on these two pieces, instead of doubling it up. I figured I'd just go with the 10mm. Now remember, you always want to make sure you have a very sharp knife. So invest in like a blade sharpener, like a sharpening stone or something to that effect. Once again, I pretty much glued everything together on this project with Zap-A-Gap. It's a really strong super glue. I usually find mine online. And then bada bing, bada boom. Got both pieces in place. Now it's really starting to take shape. So now I was actually working on the actual rocket tube part, and I had this plastic, so I think it's like a sprinkler pipe or something like that. But I got this from Home Depot as well. So I had to use initially I tried to use my pipe cutter, but it was so soft that it would just indent, and I actually had to go back over with my X-Acto knife and cut it out. But as you can see, I cut it about roughly around like 2 inches in length. Now these will just be for the base. I will be adding extra detail pieces to these. So here I am cutting those little detail pieces. I believe these will be the trim around the top of the rocket tube launchers. And I'm actually using 6mm. No, I'm sorry, 2mm craft foam that actually has an adhesive backing on it. So hopefully, that will stay. Usually I'll just, cut it out and then use Zap-A-Gap and glue that on. But I had some of this stuff laying around the house, so I figured, hey, might as well put it to some good use. It's just cosplay, right? And you just want to make sure that they stay put, that's all. So if they do start to lift on you, then you might want to use a little bit of like super glue or something just to kind of tack it back down. So once again, I believe I'm using the 2mm craft foam with the adhesive backing. And eventually I decided that the back portion wasn't thick enough where I just put the like wider section of the craft foam. So I think I actually wrapped it a couple of times to give it, the thickness that it looked like it had in the reference pictures. So here I am, I'm just basically making those engraved lines that go on the rocket portions. And so what I did is I believe I might have used the pipe cutter actually to just kind of engrave the lines, and then I went over them again with my X-Acto knife. Now I believe right here I'm making the little box section that goes on the side of the knee pad, and that's on the side that goes with the rocket tubes. And the rocket tubes kind of almost like rest against that side piece, and you want to make sure you cut it at least a 40-degree angle to give a nice bevel to your piece. And I'm gonna take my Dremel tool and I'm actually going to sand that down a little bit, because sometimes when you cut it, it doesn't cut clean. So you got to take your Dremel tool, your rotary tool, and then just sand that down and get it the way you need it, like that. So now here I'm engraving. There's like a nice engraving line on the inside of the box that I just cut out. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to just engrave those lines, and then I'll take the heat gun and I'll use the heat gun to cause those lines to open up. And then I am cutting a piece of that 2mm adhesive stuff, craft foam, and then I'm going to put that in the middle of my engraving. But that's after. Gotta make sure everything's all heat sealed. Be careful, please, because using a heat gun, those things get very hot and you don't want to burn yourself with the tip. So it's kind of good to be able to get a heat gun they have now that you could just stand straight up. And there you go, see, the engraving and the smaller piece that I put for an accent on the inside with the 2mm foam. Now all that's left to do is Zap-A-Gap that bad boy into place. Now you got a little bit of time to work with, the super glues. I know a lot of people use, primarily contact cement for everything, but contact cement does have some toxic fumes, and you really got to use that in a really well ventilated area. I find with the super glue, it does put out fumes, but they're not as bad. So just, you might still want to wear your respirator when working with any type of glues. Now here, I decided to, like I said earlier, I wanted to thicken up those little pieces that are going to go onto the rocket portion. Okay. So I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to actually thicken it up. So you can see right there. So what I did is I cut thinner pieces, 3 thinner pieces, and then I just applied those. That way the engraving lines, the 3 engraving lines will stay. And then I'm just going to take my Dremel tool. Well, right, first I'm going to take a marker and mark around where I want to sand. And then I'm going to take my Dremel rotary tool and like sand a beveled edge on there. Trying to get it as close to the reference pictures as I can. Just be careful. Remember, you're working with a rotary tool, so if you don't have a real good grip or you're going too fast with your rotary tool, it could either take too much off of your foam piece or it could just whip it across the room. Both aren't that great. It's happened to me before. Okay, so there we have it. I have both of the pieces shaped the way that I want them to, and they're pretty close to the reference picture. So now I'm just pretty much gonna glue those bad boys right onto the knee rocket. Because you can't have the knee pad without the rocket, right? So once again, if you're curious, I'm using Zap-A-Gap glue. This stuff works really, really well. A friend of mine put me onto that stuff years ago, and it's pretty much what I mostly use when I am gluing parts together. I only use the contact cement when I really need like main parts, like maybe the chest piece or things of that nature. But for the most part, I use Zap-A-Gap. And there you go. That is pretty much the build portion of the knee rocket. I'll end up taking my Dremel tool and just kind of sanding and rounding off or evening out the some of the edges. Definitely want to round off the edges on the outline. You know, makes it look less like a piece of foam and actually looks like a piece of, you know, something that could possibly be, you know, some knee armor that shoot rockets. So bam, there we go. I did not go through the whole painting portion, but what I did is I plasti dipped everything, and then I took my airbrush and I mixed up a color and I just airbrushed everything a solid blue. Eventually I end up going over this color and darkening it up a little bit, but I also masked off the rocket portions, and what I'm going to have to do is go over and paint those with a black gloss acrylic paint, because I planned on, originally I painted it with the Alclad 2 chrome through my airbrush. That's the same stuff I used for the Beskar armor, but it was a little too dark and shiny for me. So I basically ended up going over it eventually with a Sharpie marker, a metallic Sharpie marker, just to dull it out and make it look older and like beat up and stuff. So basically, I had to mask off around the area where I was going to paint, because you don't want to get any of that chrome onto your finished product. And then I ended up taking that same Sharpie marker and drawing in like the scraped metal look on the knee pad. And that pretty much is my finished knee pad. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it, gave you guys a couple of ideas of how I basically made my knee rocket. Everybody's going to have their own way of, obviously building and making things, but, it's all about having fun and expressing yourself. So I hope you guys got something out of this. And if you enjoy my work, please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. And hit the like button if you like the video. And as I end all my videos, remember, hashtag, I cosplay my way. And you can too. And you should too. Peace.